Hey folks, Russell here, coming from the shop again. As well, I'm always coming from the shop. Obviously, in previous episodes, we've been talking about this 4.6 stroker that we're building. We've cranks installed, the rotating assemblies installed, pistons, crank, rods, everything, and I'll put a link up here for that video. Today's episode, we are going to install our camshaft and our timing kit and front cover and the crank pulley. At a minimum, I may proceed on and finish this entire short block today, but at a minimum, we're looking at camshaft, timing set, front cover, and the crank pulley. So without further ado, I'm going to grab the camshaft and start getting it installed, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the parts that I'm using as we go. Alright, so the camshaft we chose for this engine is actually it's actually a Mopar piece. It's a Mopar purple cam, and I believe they used to offer 4 different varieties or flavors of this camshaft, and we'll just say stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can no longer, well, actually you can no longer get any of them, but a few years ago you could still get up to a stage 2. So I managed to purchase one and set it on a shelf for future use. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I could get the cam, so I figured I'd go ahead and get it. So this is the equivalent, the stage 2 cam. I think it's called a, I don't even remember the number on it. But after talking with Bishop Buell Racing, this camshaft with the 1.7 to 1 rockers should liven this motor up a lot. We're going to lube all the cam journals with the Luber plate. I actually have a little bit on there already. We're going to put a little bit more, especially on the end over here, where that's going to ride on the cup. I'm not so much worried about the lobes themselves. When I put the lifters in, I've got a different solution. It's more liquid-like. I can just drop down, and we'll go ahead and put some on there. Like I said, I like using, if you're not going to start the motor within, a day or 2 of building it, I really prefer to use this Luber plate. It's more of a grease type substance. Has less of a chance of like washing off or flowing off. All right. When you're installing a camshaft into a pushrod engine where the cam goes into the block, just be slow and methodical with pushing it in. All right, camshaft is in. I'll just, where's my little handle piece here? Which is easier said than done sometimes. There we go. Alright, and I think I talked about in some previous videos when we were getting ready to build this engine about the parts that I had acquired on hand. I prefer to use the Rollmaster time and chain sets. These are made in Australia. I don't know why I've always used these, at least on all the engines I've built. Mostly because, well, I don't know. I don't know why. I like these. There's a couple other manufacturers out there of timing sets for these Jeep engines, but I can still get these Rollmaster sets, so that's what I like to use. Of course, the rubber band's going to get me. There we go. One of the things I do like about these Rollmaster sets is if you wanted to alter the timing of the camshaft, advance or retard, it's degreed multiple places to do that. But we're not going to alter that timing, so we're just going to go with 0. Ta-da. So simple enough, slip the chains over, line up the dowel, and the timing chain is on and seated. Hey folks, I almost forgot this. When you're installing your timing set, make sure your timing marks are lined up. As I said before, this Rollmaster timing set allows me to advance or retard the camshaft timing. I'm setting this camshaft straight up and down, so the 0 mark is on the keyway, and if you look over here, there's a There's a 0 mark on the gear, and it corresponds with the dot on the cam gear. So that could have been catastrophic if I hadn't caught that. So we're going to proceed with getting this front cover on. I'll get the camera set up again. So, next thing we got to do is put our retention bolt in. This is actually a 4-piece setup. It's a flat washer, the bolt, there's a spring in here, and then a pin. So in the earlier 4 liters and in the 258s prior to that, the cam was retained into the block by a spring-loaded pin that pushes against the front cover. The later versions actually had a retention plate that bolted to the block that kept the cam from walking, and then it was just a bolt and a washer that goes in. So I don't remember where I get these parts from off the top of my head. If I can find it, I'll put it in the description. I'll take the pin back out. And of course, after you get the sprockets on, the chain on, and it's bolted in, this bolt is torqued to 50 foot-pounds, and it's a 3/4 inch size bolt. So and it is going to want to move. So what I usually do is just put a punch through the sprocket. All right. And then we put the pin in. So our timing set is on. Now we've just got to get the, I've got to find my oil slinger. I don't know if you noticed, I had to do just a little bit of filing where the Woodruff key goes and mates to the crank. There was just a little burr in there. It won't affect anything, but I wanted to make sure that burr was gone so that I know my crank pulley will slide on. And it looks like it will. So we're good. But just to be sure, oh, still a little bit right there. All right. Okay. Timing chain's installed, sprockets, crank, torqued, oil slinger's on. I've gotten rid of the burrs on the crank and for the Woodruff key. So now we've got to prepare the front cover and get it installed. All right. So the first thing I got to do is I got to put the crank seal in, which means I have to find it. Now, when I was driving this seal in to the front cover, it kind of, I mean, it went in fine. But when I was looking on the back side, it looked kind of funny. Not ha-ha funny, just different funny. So I was concerned, and so I went and got another seal. But after showing this to a buddy of mine, he said the seal's fine. So we're going to go ahead and roll with it and take our chances. So there is a chain guide, and it slips into a pair of slots in the timing cover. It's just a little rubber covered brass or I don't even know what they make it out of. It's just a little rubber covered guide. Alright, that's installed. Alright, so got our timing cover, got our chain guide installed, got my paper gasket, and if you notice, there's a whole bunch of holes here. Five of them are real small. The remainder of them are rather large. But here's the deal. Some of these holes, like these three large ones here, are used to mount various alternator or AC brackets. So the only holes we're going to fill is that large one and that large one, and then the 5 small ones. Or I take that back, 6 small ones. Alright, now that I got all the bolts, let's talk about paper gaskets. Paper gaskets on new surfaces generally don't need any coatings. I'm not by any means saying don't coat your paper gaskets. I'm just saying that originally they didn't have anything. A lot of people coat both sides of the gasket with like red or black RTV, high temp stuff. I used to do that, but now I use Permatex Aviation Forma gasket. It's also called Permatex number 3. This stuff brushes on, so it's a liquid, and it's really good on these paper gaskets. I can coat both sides of this gasket, let it sit for a few minutes, and then put it together, and then torque it down. This stuff never fully hardens. It stays. It'll cure, but it'll stay somewhat flexible, so vibrations won't affect it. It works really well, and it's impervious to most, if not all, automotive solvents. I imagine, well, fuel, oil, antifreeze won't affect it, but solvents like brake cleaner, denatured alcohol will. So I am going to, let's see, let's do it this way. I'm going to paint some on our surface. And I actually use this same stuff on the core plugs in a block. I'll put it around the edge of the core plug and let it set for a few minutes and then drive the plug in. This stuff is very, very similar to the old Indian head shellac. I would not use this on any like rubber or even a cork gasket, but paper gaskets for sure, definitely. And make sure you're using this stuff, you're in a well ventilated area. It gets a little noxious. So I've got a good coating completely around where that paper gasket's going to go. And the other thing that this will help do is hold that gasket in place. All right, slight change of plans. We're going to use a different gasket. So I'll put a little more goop on. Make sure we're coated well. So now that the gasket's laid down, I'll brush some over the top of it. All right, so I know that this one is going to go in here, so I'm going to go ahead and place that one. And I know that this one is going to go in here, so I'm going to place that one. All right, got our gasket. Got some of our bolts so we can get it started. Now, one thing I forgot to do, and I'll do it before we put the crank pulley in, but I forgot to put grease in that seal. Normally, you just put a little oil in it, but like I've said before, we're not going to be starting this engine for quite some time, so I want to put grease in the lip of that seal. All right, it's secured, but it's not torqued down. I'm going to let this sit. I'll get the grease. I'll go ahead and grease that lip. And we're going to let this sit for about 15-20 minutes before we torque it down. And once again, my go-to grease when putting motors together is Luber plate. So I'm going to smear some Luber plate in here on this seal. Because it's going to be a while before we start this engine. I want to make sure it's lubed up really well. All right, we're back at it. It's been about 20-30 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and start torquing these bolts down. If you notice, I keep going around it because every time I do, the bolts move a little bit more. So what we're doing is stabilizing the torque. And I'll do something very similar when we do our oil pan. You'll see. It may be stabilized now. All right, small bolts are stabilized. Now we got to get the big ones. All right, front cover's installed. So now I've got to set up the crank installer, and we'll drive the crank pulley on and be done with the front cover and the timing set. So I'm going to smear a little Luber plate on that crank snout. And a little bit on the surfaces of the crank pulley, inside and out. All right, and this will just drive that pulley on. If you notice, I'm pulling this back off and checking because we're using a long snout crank with a serpentine belt system. I have to have this crank spacer. So I'm trying to make sure that my crank spacer is lined up on the Woodruff key. And it is. So I will proceed. All right, the crank is fully seated. Yay! All right, the only thing left to do is to torque the main bolt for the vibration damper, the crank pulley, crank damper, whatever you want to call it. On a small block Chevy, it's called a crank balancer, but inline sixes, it doesn't balance anything. So it gets torqued to 80 foot-pounds, lubricated. Y'all didn't see it. I dipped the threads of the bolt in a little bit of motor oil to lubricate them, and you can see that spacer that we have to use. So we'll torque this to 80 foot-pounds, which means I need to brace it. Let me get a pin. Find a good spot to roll pin brace it. There we go. All right. Very good. Pulley's installed, timing set's installed. We're at top dead center. And that's all we got for today. Ended up taking 2 days to do it because I had to wait on a new seal. Or I thought I had to wait on a new seal. Once again, what we did today was installed our camshaft, timing chain set, front cover, and the crank pulley, or the crank vibration damper. If you'd like this content, go ahead and like, hit subscribe, hit that bell icon for future notifications, and as always, there's more to follow.